AEG announces its summer concerts, The Dirty Business of Songwriting. Steve Stout says intellectual property will diminish, and more catalog acquisitions, the return of music retail and Live Nation's live streaming setup, and why NFTs don't matter for indie musicians, and what's a day without your daily Spotify update. We have a lot to talk about, but first, let's go over to our co-host, Eli Window. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Peter. How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, let's it's we had a good discussion in the morning show room, and it's there's a lot of stuff that's been going on in the music industry that is affecting, we've talked about mental health and everything, and we've talked about that on the news. And I just want to say, something just, keep a lookout for your fellow friends, your coworkers, colleagues, and everybody else.
Absolutely. Be kind to yourselves and each other.
Be kind to yourselves. Right there. All right. With that being said, hey, let's get into this day in history. Let's take it away, Eli.
All right. Let's take a look. Let's go ahead and remember today. In 1983, the Pretenders bass player Pete Farndon died from a drug overdose. He was sacked from the group on June 14th, 1982, 2 days before Pretenders guitarist James Honeyman Scott was found dead of heart failure. Farndon was in the midst of forming a new band with former Clash drummer Topper Headon when he died. On this day in 2014, Latin jazz percussionist Armando Pierza died of pneumonia at the age of 89. He was a member of Santana from early 1972 until the early 90s, appearing on over 15 of the group's albums in memory. Also in memory today from 2015, we remember American R&B soul singer Percy Sledge, who died of liver cancer in his home in Baton Rouge, aged 73. The inspiration behind his 1966 U.S. #1 hit, When a Man Loves a Woman, came when Sledge's girlfriend left him for a modeling career after he was laid off from a construction job late in 1965. Oh, big mistake, right? Let's move on. Happy birthday today. Remembering birthdays, 1932, Loretta Lynn was born, country singer, first woman to be named Country Music Artist Entertainer of the Year. Also born on this day in 1945, English guitarist and songwriter Ritchie Blackmore from Deep Purple. Happy birthday today from 1980, Win Butler, lead vocalist, songwriter, and he's a Grammy Award-winning indie rock band Arcade Fire member also. Moving on to this day in history, 1953, Lido Rozza was at #1 on the UK singles chart with How Much Is That Doggy in the Window? On this day in 2001, Sean Puffy Combs, of course P. Diddy, was arrested in Miami for riding a scooter in South Beach on a suspended driver's license. He was released 20 minutes later after promising to appear in court. He signed a document promising to appear in court and was released. On this day, 2003, a man was arrested accused of making up a Bjork concert and then selling tickets. That's crazy, right? Alex Conant allegedly sold tickets worth $14,000 at $40 apiece after persuading a San Diego nightclub owner that Bjork had indeed agreed to play there. He was accused of taking the money and then moving to Hawaii, where he was arrested. Let that be a lesson to all of us. Don't fake concerts. And finally, on this day, 2013, Justin Bieber caused outrage after writing a message in a guest book at the Anne Frank Museum, which stated he hoped the Holocaust victim would have been a fan. The 19-year-old pop star wrote, "Truly inspiring to be able to come here, and was a great girl. Hopefully, she would have been a believer." It provoked fierce online criticism of the Canadian pop singer, who was in Amsterdam as part of a tour. Hey, hoped she would have been a believer. Kind of crazy, right, Peter?
Yeah, I don't think that's one of the things you want to write in something like that. A little self-awareness at that, goes into play.
Yeah. 0 points for self-awareness on that one.
But I do have to add, how much is that doggy in the window? Come on. What a great.
Everybody loves How Much Is That Doggy in the Window. That's a
I
classic. You gotta love
know.
that one.
And the Puff Daddy. So yeah, I remember Puff Daddy. That was right after Winter Music Conference because I remember seeing him at Winter Music Conference that year in 2001. So yeah, but he has to promise to appear in court. Like I want to know if he actually did.
Well, and what cracks me up is he needed a license to operate that scooter in the first place.
Well, that's a thing. I know people have gotten tickets in New York City, so like any kind of like
Yeah.
motorized thing would be considered. You need to have a license for it. So anyway, welcome everybody. It's great to see you. We've invited some of our cast of characters up here, the usual crew. If we don't invite you, it just means we're reading something and didn't get to see you. So make sure you raise your hand, and if there's anything you want to bring to the table, feel free. How this works is we're going to kick off with reading some sections of articles directly from the news, and you can find these article links in the show notes, which is at musicindustrycity.com. You can click on the graphic that says Clubhouse Information Center, and there you'll be able to find the show notes. We cover that through all our other shows as well. So there's music suggestions, there's artists and business resources, but also for you, there's the news articles. All right, so let's get into it. All right, and this one's kicking off from Billboard. The headline is AEG hosting summer concerts in Wyoming with fewer pandemic restrictions. The promoter has confirmed 4 events at Chinook at Terry Bison Ranch in Wyoming, a state with no restrictions on outdoor gatherings. The article starts off with, as live music looks to mount a post-pandemic comeback, AEG Presents has announced it will book a new outdoor music venue this spring. Terry Bison Ranch is a 5,000 capacity venue set on a dude ranch on the outskirts of Cheyenne, Wyoming. Quote, we liked it a lot because we saw it as a place in the short and long-term opportunities, said Dan Strasberg, co-president of AEG Presents Rocky Mountains and Pacific Northwest. He continues, we're looking for cool new ways to present music, and places like the Terry Bison Ranch are a good template moving forward. I think it's going to resonate with audiences. So this about 110 miles north of Red Rocks, the Cheyenne space will pad out AEG's booking options in the Rocky Mountain region, especially as COVID-19 pandemic continues to restrict indoor show capacities. All right. And like AEG contacted Wyoming's Blue Pig Presents, who booked socially distant drive-in concerts at the venue last year to make the arrangement. Quote, it's our job to be prepared for all the options. We don't have a ton of opportunities indoors this summer, and we have limited outdoor opportunities because there's only so many spaces, he said. Continued, based upon COVID and the law, Cheyenne was a place where we could have extremely stringent rules and still have a good environment. So the article goes on. It's really interesting. And then they say the AEG will only use a portion of it. The ranch is a 27,500 acre property abutting the Colorado-Wyoming border. It bills itself as a half dude ranch and half resort, sporting a restaurant, on-property train rides, and plenty of space for camping. It's a unique offering for live music, Strasberg said, comparing it to Warning's Hideout in Portland, Oregon. So far, AEG has confirmed 4 events at the space, each an artist-curated 2-night run. It'll launch its first show on May 7th and 8th with the Monster Energy Outbreak Tour, a 2-night event hosted and curated by Philadelphia dubstep producer Subtronics. The gathering will feature about a half dozen acts and other festival amenities. All right, so yeah, the article goes on more, and it's again, it's in from Billboard.com. So, some of these states that have restrictions, it's interesting that they're looking at different places to hold events. Maybe this becomes something we're going to start seeing new venues or, new land space where we could have these type of events. Maybe some more creativity will come into it, like, axe throwing event with music festival. Anybody out west hear any more about this? Any thoughts? All right. This one is this is an interesting and in-depth article. This one comes from Variety. It's from Jem Oswald. Inside the Dirty Business of Hit Songwriting. This is really interesting because we covered this last week, and it's about a jazz musician saying that well, people are not that sorry. There's a different one saying the songwriters are being squeezed to give up songwriting percentages, and for people who haven't written anything. So this is a really great article. I encourage you to read the entire thing in depth. I'll try to get the highlights without giving too much. But it starts off, the backstory of this, it starts off, Jem writes, 64 years ago, as Elvis Presley's career reached a supernova stage, the 21-year-old singer's team hit on a strategy that enabled him to profit from songwriting without actually writing songs. His management and music publisher had added Presley's name to the credits on a couple of his early hits, but the singer wasn't comfortable with the practice and frequently told interviewers that he had, quote, never written a song in my life. Instead, as recounted in Peter Guralnick's authoritative biography, Last Train to Memphis, his team set up an arrangement whereby the king skipped the credit but received 1/3 of the songwriting royalties for each song he released, no matter who wrote it. And this goes on to say this was confirmed by people that hold the rights to familiar with the catalog. And according to Dolly Parton, the policy not only was still in practice nearly 2 decades later, but the King's ransom had gotten even bigger. Presley was going to record Parton's 1974 hit, I Will Always Love You, which is now one of the top-selling and most performed songs of all time, largely thanks to Whitney Houston's 1992 cover. Quote, I was so excited. Elvis wanted to meet me and all that, she recalled in a September 2020 interview on Living and Learning with Reba McEntire. And the night before the session, Colonel Tom Parker's called me and said, quote, we don't record anything with Elvis unless we have at least half the publishing. And Dolly went on to say, I can't do that. And he said, well, then we can't do it. And she goes on, I cried all night just because I just pictured Elvis singing it. I know it wasn't his decision, but it's true. I said no. So, true to the manager's word, Presley did not cut the song. So the article goes on and it's talking about like multiple industry sources until the variety of the practice involves some of the biggest stars in the music and their teams. One major manager has even called the practice a tax for his artist recording a song, and others have gone on to form a group called Pact, and who is co-founded by Emily Warren, who has written hits for Dua Lipa and the Chainsmokers and more. So there, it's a really in-depth article, and then it's going on with the quote, there isn't a songwriter who has released 10 cuts who hasn't encountered this situation. Ross Golan, who has written hits for Bieber, Maroon 5, Grande, and more. The money grab is worse than ever. It's gotten out of control, says another top songwriter. It's a total abuse of power and basically extortion. And a third adds, whose career reaches back to the 1960s, quote, I'm not surprised that it's still happening, but I am surprised it's happening to this extent. So again, this is really, it's starting to that point. Well, not starting, it's been around for decades, but that point where you write a song and it's not, you have to give up, it's almost like, I look at this as like, Apple says, here's your deal that and the royalties you're going to get, sign it, or we're not going to put your music up or whatever. And, it's kind of sounds like, this is just the same thing trickling down from artist to artist. Any thoughts on this?
There used to be a phrase in the, I don't know whether it's still around, but there used to be a phrase in the late 90s, early 2000s of change a word and claim a third.
Yep, that they reference that in the yeah. That's exactly what it is. I mean, this is, it's nothing new, so it's not surprising to many. But it seems like it's now being brought to light, but also, as some have said, it's at a even greater extent. Well, and speaking then of intellectual properties, United Masters Steve Stout in music business worldwide, and we've seen his recent deal with Apple. And United Masters, so the article is record companies' ownership in artists' intellectual property will diminish. All right, so it talks a little about the investment that Apple has made into United Masters, which is a $50 million Series B investment led by Apple with additional funding from existing backers, Google parent Alphabet and Andreessen Horowitz. And so the New York headquarters United Masters launched 4 years ago to provide indie artists with music distribution services plus analytics and royalty tools. Today it says that it has 1 million artist partners on its platform. So Steve South goes on his mission to become a full-service music company in your pocket. Two recent developments from the United Masters highlight this goal. The platform launched a subscription tier in July, which it allows acts to keep 100% of the royalties from digital services. And in August 2020, they announced a deal that saw it become the first music distribution company to be integrated into short-form video app TikTok. He goes on, there's part of a Q&A in here. And, it's about accelerating careers. I'm going to just focus on a few points here. It's talking about, he's saying, why should record companies ever own your rights? It doesn't make any sense. There have been complaints about for years. There have been movies about this topic, and now you've seen the next generation of artists complain about it. It's become increasingly obvious that record companies could have had a plausible argument for that contractual setup when they were doing something that was so cost-intensive, like manufacturing vinyl or CDs or distributing those CDs to thousands of music stores. They're not doing that anymore, so how could they have the lion's share of the profit? Why should they ever own your rights? It doesn't make any sense. And, he's going on like, I don't know why you would ever sign to a record company. I mean, he's really putting this big push. And there's a lot of people that, the DIY artists that are looking, it's like, hey, why would I sign to a record label? And, so he goes on, the record company A&R system has been mostly betting on buying viral hits and overpaying for them. It's like buying a lottery ticket, overpaying for something because it's buzzing. Therefore, a bidding war gets created as a result of that. That's just record companies fighting for market share, regardless of what it costs. Quote, the record company A&R system has been mostly betting on buying viral hits. All right. So, any thoughts on this? I mean, it's a really interesting article. And he has a lot, Steve has a lot of power for statements, he stands by. He's really for this, and you hear a lot of these different artists saying, cut out the middleman. Why do I want a label? Distribution is king, and that's all you really need. And of course, you do need a team and marketing and everything. But he's talking about saying it's like, oh, they're just putting a bidding war for a hit that goes viral. Well, how is that different from the 80s when a DJ would play a record and that would get a lot of pickup? And, it's like, oh, hey, well, we're going to go for a bidding war on that. It's just a different platform. But then again, they had to manufacture and distribute that physical copy. Any thoughts on this?
It just takes the development out of the whole scheme, which is really what a lot of us joined the industry for in the first place. And it's just not.
So an interesting thing would be saying is that there's people out there says like labels don't develop artists anymore, which is not 100% true by any means. And you'll find a lot of people that would disagree that have developed artists through the label system. And so they're saying, well, you just need distribution. So you don't need development. We're just going to be a distribution platform, and we can help you align with you with some brands. They have that going for them, and we'll supply you with analytics. Well, doesn't every other distribution company supply you with analytics?
Yeah, I mean, this might actually be a good option for people who don't want any additional input and just need the distribution. But at the same time, the development aspect is the part that used to be sort of the fix that we came out of the 80s and took advantage of, which is why so many different genres and niche markets were able to be exposed to the public. Whereas now, it's with this model, it kind of goes back to that old thing where the bidding war becomes what the 80s were.
And what's going to be interesting is, on top of this, I'm tying in these articles here when we were talking about the songwriters and now with intellectual property. And I'm going to move on to catalog in just a moment, because it's really interesting how these all tie together in a sense that you have property and you can own it and have a distributor, or you can own it and give up some of that and have a major label behind you, or you can have a deal structure with an indie label and have support teams in different areas, or you can look at having teams and really going to push that and get you into the fact that you might be able to sell your catalog someday. So if anybody else wants to join in the conversation, feel free to raise your hand and come on up to the stage. We have a few more articles before we go over to the roundtable. And I know some people have submitted some articles as well to me. But this ties it in, like, so we've seen, $4 billion was this magic number, it seemed, for valuations, and $1 billion, it seems, for the last few weeks have been what catalog acquisitions and with KKR and BMG. So Music Business Worldwide has an article, Cooking Vinyl launches catalog division with aggressive acquisition policy by Steve Bunyan. And so basically what they're doing is the article starts off, in other words, to manage its existing catalogs and buy new ones. Cooking Vinyl says the new department would demonstrate both, quote, an increased focus on the long-term sales of artists presently signed to the CV label, as well as an aggressive acquisition policy to bolster the roster. The new division will be headed up by catalog industry veteran Steve Bunyan. During his time running catalog teams at Union Square Music and BMG, Bunyan worked with artists as Madness, Slade, Fatboy Slim, that goes on. We're saying is Cooking Vinyl. Chairman Martin Goldschmidt, the UK board Indies track record size, flexibility, and financial backing means that it can offer an attractive bespoke alternative to what he describes as the larger companies currently hoovering up rights. It goes on, Martin Goldschmidt commented, working for the artists and music we love and advancing their careers is what gets us out of bed in the morning. The appointment of someone of this caliber, saying Steve Bunyan, allows us to enhance our service to artists and look to acquire new catalogs and recordings. And so Bunyan continues, he's like, too many labels just focus on the initial week one of chart position, which, important as it is, does not do justice to the many months of work that goes into making a record. And in addition, Cooking Vinyl's global sales, marketing, and distribution setup makes it an ideal home for new catalogs, somewhere where the value of additional master rights will be optimized while protecting and nurturing the legacy of artists and labels. So we're hearing another company yet saying, let's get into the catalog acquisition business. Any thoughts on this?
I'm starting to think that maybe we should have like a daily catalog acquisition update in addition to the Spotify daily update.
Well, you know what I also think? I think we should have we should kick over to our daily weather update. Let's over to you, Eli, with the weather.
I think that's a great idea. Everybody, for a quick update of the local weather where you are, be sure to step over to the window, open it up, and stick your head outside. You can even wave your arm around out in the air outside, and that's how you check your local weather. Because we have folks listening in from all over the world, so we can't predict your local weather, but you can check it out. Back over to you, Peter.
It may or may not be raining. Back to you. Love it. So this is an interesting out of musicweek.com. Again, all everything's in the show notes, which you can find at musicindustrycity.com. Click on the panel that says Clubhouse Information Center, and you can find the show notes document there to get all the links. We do this Monday through Friday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, and we keep the links updated throughout the week. So you can check that document anytime, and we save it up for the weekly wrap up, the week in review on Friday, which we kind of bring everything to a full circle. And again, if there's anything you want to talk about that we might not discuss here, feel free to raise your hand. You can DM me an article and say like, hey, I'd love to be able to talk about this. So ERA's Kim Bailey on the return of music retail. So in this, I'm going to ask some of our friends over across the pond, because April 12th was the key day in the calendar for the return of non-essential retail, though social distancing and other safety measures continue to be in place. It means indie retailers and HMV can open their doors once again, although the prospect of an in-store gig is still some way off based on government guidelines. Record Store Day is to return for its first drop on June 12th, and it follows a continuing vinyl boom and speculation that the format has been widely adopted during the pandemic as fans were unable to spend money on gigs. So when Kim Bailey, the CEO of ERA, was asked how are the music retailers set, she was saying the members are raring to go. Staff have been recalled. Stores have been restocked. What we cannot know at this point is precisely how the public are going to respond. Some people will clearly be out and about in the shops as soon as they can. Others will hold back. The big question is how many people will fall into each category. So this is a little bit more about, what's going on over there. Has anybody seen can talk about what they, if they've heard anything, seen like what's going on the streets and the retail stores? I heard, HMV has opened up all their stores. Does anybody can report back?
As we speak, I'm actually on a train back from London now to my home in Essex, and I've been in some retail stores today, but none of them are music-related retail stores. They're hard to find in the city now anymore. I know where a couple of them are, but I don't usually go to them. In my local town, the record store at the end of my road has a record store day event planned, and I'm going to be buying the Everything vinyl because it's going to be exceptional. Andy?
Thanks, Angela. I mean, yeah, you've been a lot further than I have. I don't really leave at the moment. I need to get that second vaccine in before I'm out and about. But I know just from anecdotally, my wife was out and about today and said the roads are a lot busier.
Right
which is
on.
not surprising.
All right. And thank you for our chief UK correspondents, Andy and Angela.
Essex through and through.
Right on. All right, so moving on, Hypebot. This one's from Hypebot, and this is one I really enjoy. It's more of a commentary piece. The title is 5 Reasons NFTs Don't Matter for Indie Musicians, and then they put in parentheses, yet. So there's been a great deal of buzz lately about NFTs could be the long-awaited savior that rejuvenates the music industry. But if you're a DIY artist, you might want to hold off on going all in for NFTs, at least for the moment. So it's really interesting. I'm not going to read all of it, but a couple of things to point out. It's like, so here's what you need to know about NFTs if you're a DIY musician. Seriously, you will know when it's time for NFTs. Until then, don't worry. That's really what they're saying, is like they start off saying, forget about them for now. Yes, there are many promising big picture possibilities and exciting current uses for NFTs. They could end the practice of ticket scalping, which would help both fans and artists. NFTs could also benefit artists who license their music, and the blockchain could stand in for copyright registration since it's acting as a similar time-based witness of a work's creation and usage, and the list goes on. So, what they're saying, they go into the a little background about NFTs, and here's just a few takeaways that it just falls under why this matters. And I really enjoy this article, and it's great for people that, you hear the artists like, I want to get into NFTs because I hear $62 million, $2.6 million, $11 million, blow this, dead mouse that, Kings of Leon. Sexy headlines, very sexy headlines. But this is just more of a thought piece to think about, is NFTs don't invent demand. For our purposes, let's say your NFT is some sort of form of digital music content. It's a song, a riff, a logo, a music video. It could be anything. With any of those files might be replicable. The official NFT version is not, thus limiting ownerships and rendering that particular presentation of the digital content more rare. In theory, when quantity is limited, value increases, but only if there's demand. Just because my neighbor made a one-of-a-kind voice memo of his dog barking doesn't mean I want to buy it. So it's really kind of like, I just really like this article. I think everybody really needs any artist that is thinking about doing this. It's like, and there's a great point here he makes. Your fan is probably more likely to send you $1,000 through PayPal for a signed vinyl and their name in the liner notes, because to purchase an NFT, that same person would have to Google what the hell an NFT is in the first place, acquire the crypto to buy it. Yeah, and your fans will need cryptocurrency, and then they'll have to jump through a few more hoops to finally purchase it. There's a lot of obstacles. So you have to get a MetaMask. You have to have a wallet. You have to convert. You have to align accounts. So there's a lot of these things that take into consideration that, is the challenge for the person that you could easily put something up on eBay, or just say, here's a one of a kind, and set up a PayPal account. I really find this article eye-opening, and I think it's a good case for artists to look at for jumping into this NFT craze. Any thoughts on this?
There's another point.
Oh, go ahead. I'll be next.
No, Andrew, no, go ahead. I've been on the mic a lot.
I just came in. First of all, I'm surprised, Peter, you didn't play yourself your little music riff for mentioning those 3 letters.
I don't do it in the newsroom. I don't do it in the newsroom because it is part of the news. But say it in one of the other rooms and you'll get it.
Yeah, right. I think this is great and really speaks to independent artists that may not have over 1 million, followers, but how they can look at NFTs as a way for, growing their community, not expecting that they're going to launch an NFT and sell it for, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think a lot of artists are now trying to strategize and figure out how they can use it to grow a community and reward their fans with unlockable content and making it affordable for your fans to invest in you. So I like that article. I'm going to go check it out. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. I do have I know this is going to be a conversation piece, and there is also another article queued up. Mike McCready actually sent me an article, so I want to bring that, and it's a good follow-up to this. So if I can just table the NFT, thank you for those points, and let's bring that back in when we go to the roundtable. I do have one article, and it is the Spotify Daily Updates.
The Spotify spot, you say?
The Spotify spot.
Excellent. The Spotify spot.
And Eli's working on a great little sonic branding for that. So we're going to be introducing that soon.
I love it. So yeah, we're going to have the Spotify spot theme music coming up here soon. But before we move into the Spotify spot, I just want to take a moment and quickly reset the room. If you've just joined us or if you're tuning in on a streaming platform, this is the Music News Power Hour live from Clubhouse for iOS daily every weekday from 12 to 1 Eastern. You can join us here for music headlines that we found on the World Wide Web that we think are interesting, and we think you might too. If you're in the room on Clubhouse and you'd like to speak or ask a question about any of the articles that we've mentioned, or if you want to bring an article that we have missed, please feel free to raise your hand. It's not that we don't love you if we don't invite you to speak. It's just that we're probably reading. So feel free to put your hands up here in the Music News Power Hour room. We have some new folks up on the stage for us. We're about to go into a couple more headlines, and then we'll begin our roundtable. So thanks for joining us on the stage. We can't wait to hear your comments. We're going to get to that shortly. Peter?
All right. Thank you, Eli. Yes. All right. So we are coming into this daily Spotify update, and this one. We teased about it last week, but it's here. And this is from Music Business Worldwide as well. Spotify is officially a hardware maker now as Car Thing arrives in the U.S. Yes, the name of it is called Car Thing. All right, music streaming service Spotify is making music listening hardware, and its first official product release is a smart device for the car called the Car Thing. Initially available for select U.S. users, the new gadget's anticipated retail price is $79.99. but is available at no cost for a limited time for those select users, with Spot only charging $6.99 postage. The company currently has a waiting list, and there's a link to that waiting list, how you can get on there. So this comes after 2 years after initial reports said that the streaming company was building an in-car music player at tandem with tech company Flex. In May 2019, Spotify confirmed that it was testing voice-controlled in-car audio device called Car Thing with a small group of Spotify premium users. It also said that at the time it might carry out similar tests in the future, quote, so don't be surprised if you hear about Voice Thing and Home Thing. According to a dedicated microsite launched by Spot today, the new voice-controlled device, which only works with Spotify Premium account, will let you say, hey, Spotify, to ask for a song, album, artist, playlist, station, or podcast. It also features a dial to browse, select, play, and pause content, a 4-inch touchscreen, and 4 preset buttons for shortcuts to your favorite artists, playlists, stations, and podcasts. The device connects to Spotify's app on your smartphone and connect to your car stereo via Bluetooth, aux, or USB cable. And it also claims that Car Thing's microphones, noise suppression capabilities help tune out sounds from the road in order to focus on your voice. So continue to quote, the smart player from Spotify that fills your car with music, news, entertainment, talk, and more. And they add, Car Thing is built with a sturdy unibody design for durability, and its matte textured rubber details make it easy to navigate. Car Thing's tactile navigation controls buttons, a dial, a back button, all durably constructed for repeated use. And that was on Music Business Worldwide. And they have, in that article, you can see the pictures of it and the packaging. So that is the wrap for the Spotify Daily Update, and that is the wrap for the reads. Let's open this back up, and if there's anybody that wanted to chime in about something, let's make this happen here. Any thoughts on anything we talked about?
I just want to start by saying that, I just wanted to quickly say before we move off of the car thing headline that, we talked just a moment ago about, we were asking, Angela was asking questions, is development kind of being axed out of the process? Let's take just a moment and discuss whether product branding names are being taken out of the equation. Car thing? Interesting.
It's a thing. It's a thing. Your
it's
new
a car thing.
Yeah, I mean, if they were Apple, they just would have called it iThing.
Right, exactly.
The
We're going to get to that point. iStuff.
So I can hear the management just asking, saying, "Oh, how's that car thing going?" I think that's just how it must have got its name.
I think
it
was
probably different than using your phone.
It's an actual piece of hardware, and it's I don't know. That's the question. It's like, why can't I just use my phone? And now that Spotify has voice activation on the phone, so why couldn't you just use your phone that it is for a USB? So I think they're building out something. They got to be building out something else. There's a bigger play here. Maybe it's also that because it's mountable to the dashboard, it could be it's easier to access than your phone, so it might be just you can mount it, you can just press a button, but you can also mount your phone. But the other thing about Spotify with the voice activation on the app itself, it's not like Siri or Google where you can wake it. The Spotify app must be active and at the forefront. So that's how the voice activation would work on the phone, on the mobile device.
There's a chance it may well get past some of the driving laws. I think it might actually be illegal in the UK to touch your phone while you're driving. So if it's a specifically device for while you're driving, it may get past that law. I'm assuming.
And I'm wondering as well if it won't turn out to be something similar to when we started seeing Sirius and XM player in cars. Will we start to see Spotify hardware mounted in all Toyotas, for example, just, off the top?
I mean, I have a new truck right now, and it already has like the touchscreen and everything. And as soon as I plug my phone in, I can just go through and manipulate Spotify using the touchscreen on my dashboard.
Yeah, I've been doing that for a while too on CarPlay through like Jeeps, GMC.
Yeah, Apple.
It's pretty easy to use. Well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the tie-ins, and I think it was Andy you mentioned about the laws. Somebody back in the fall, I think it was, somebody in Germany was arrested, and I didn't hear the final outcome, the verdict, but they were arrested after a car accident because they touched their on-screen dashboard to change the volume or something like that. And so it caused the accident because they took their eye off the road just to touch the on-screen, the built-in dashboard. And they saying that was, that's a violation, and they were arrested.
I don't get the whole touchscreens being introduced into cars thing. So much is done by touch, and you can't have your finger resting on a button, waiting to use it on a touchscreen. So you actually have to look every single time you use a touchscreen. You actually have to look at where you're going, which means you're taking your eyes off the road. I can't quite see why it's such a big thing in cars, apart from obviously just moving forward technology for technology reasons.
They're trying to make it simple. I mean, voice activation is pretty much the way to go. But it's going to be interesting. I do want to bring up we have about. We have actually some good time. So let's get this party started going. Let's go back to the NFTs because Mike, you sent me this article over, and I have added into the show notes. It is from futurism.com, and we were talking about NFTs in that article from Hypebot, where it was kind of saying that it might be too soon for DIY musicians to jump into the NFT space. But this article titles, not very surprisingly, NFTs are now crashing. It starts off with the question, is this the end of NFT? They were meant to revolutionize the art collection market, but just as many predicted, and Bloomberg reports, the prices of non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, are now crashing. According to a recent report by nonfungible.com, an NFT marketplace's tracker, the value of NFTs has collapsed by almost 70% from its peak in February. I do have to point out, I wonder if that's also, if there's 70% less clubhouse rooms now than in February about NFTs. Anyway, earlier this year, the blockchain-based digital certificates that gave individuals exclusive ownership over a piece of art, no matter how many times it gets copied, exploded into popularity, with some works being sold for the equivalent of millions of dollars. Even corporate America jumped on the trend, with companies like Charmin selling gimmicks like gifts of animated toilet paper. But the market for NFTs has slowed significantly since those heady days, with individual NFTs now going for an average of $1,400 as compared to $4,300 during their peak in mid-February, according to their analysis. Tech still has its defenders, though. Quote, it's not meaningful to characterize a concept as a financial bubble, blockchain expert in University of Pittsburgh academic Chris Miller told Billboard. NFTs aren't in a bubble any more than cryptocurrency is in a bubble. He argues that despite the rise and falls, the technology remains the same. Quote, there will be manias and irrational exuberance, but cryptocurrency is clearly here to stay with us for the long term. NFTs are probably too. It goes on, is this the end of the NFT craze? When seen in greater concept, the tokens still made significant gains this year, surging to almost 10 times their value in this year alone, compared to just 6 months ago. Whether this is a temporary dip or a continuing decline, in a question that's much harder to answer. Quote, the trend seems more to show a stabilization on a high plateau following a speculative peak. Anyway, Mike, thanks for the article. Thanks for sharing. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the takeaway is that, like cryptocurrency, this is probably around to stay. I think the conclusion that I've reached over the last couple of months is the same, but that this was just a lot of irrational exuberance with the introduction of it, and with people who've had success in cryptocurrency and having resources to invest into this new trend, inflated it here at first. I think they did the job of getting NFTs on everyone's radar, that's for certain.
I think there's also a thing here that there's a lot more NFTs around now. So, and a lot being put into the market. So therefore, if you take averages and look at the number of NFTs there are out there and then take the average price, of course, it'll be a lot lower. But right at the moment, Mad Dog Jones has got a auction. It's a 10-day auction. Within the first hour of it being on auction, it was either yesterday or the day before, it went up to 1.3 million. By the next day, it was at 2.4. I haven't checked it today to see where it's at. So there's still some massively big ticket items going on. But if you took all of the items that are being minted, particularly seeing as people like OpenSea now will do lazy minting, so you only pay for the minting fees for your first NFT, and then you don't actually have to pay any minting fees, which means it doesn't actually cost anything to put NFTs up for sale. Now, they may not be being bought, but if it doesn't cost anything and you haven't got the barrier to entry on the platform, then there's going to be a lot in the marketplace, and that will bring the average down on its own. So it'll be interesting to know whether that's average based on the number in the market, or whether it's on the average on the number that are being sold relative to what they were sort of 3 months ago.
The whole NFT thing is giving me Google Glass vibes from Jump, and I know some of you will disagree, but it's Hummers.
I think there's, relative to that earlier point in the article about whether it's relevant to indie artists at the moment as well, one of the key points that immediately, without considering anything else, the cost of selling an NFT on Ethereum is probably going to be higher. The cost of buying is probably going to be higher than your average fan merch item. So in other words, just the cost of buying it is probably going to be $30, $50 just in the transfer fees. So the idea of putting something up that fans are going to buy on that particular blockchain is kind of out of the reach of most fans at the moment, because you're not even going to have anything before you've actually got to the point of paying it. But there are other cryptocurrencies like Tezos, and we've been looking at Hikeknonk, which is a site that works on Tezos, And the gas fees, so the exchange fees, are way lower, down in the cents rather than in the dollars. But the onboarding is then, and I think you brought that up, Peter, the fact that you've got to find somewhere where you can buy Tezos, you've got to then create a wallet specifically for that, and all of those different levels of onboarding mean that you're not then going to be able to draw the fans in. So there's some inherent problems with it, but I think the more it gets used and the more they focus on getting those gas fees down, there are some fundamental attributes to it that I think will help. And have a lot of worth within the industry, but it's just, as they say, it's just not the place at the moment for people under the big stars, I guess.
That's a great point, Andy. I found out that I think a lot of platforms that have big fan bases for discovering music are now trying to figure out their NFT play. So Mandolin, for example, is a live streaming platform. They announced yesterday that they're going to start incorporating NFTs into their platform. It'll probably be a simple either a credit card transaction or pairing a MetaMask wallet. But I do see a lot of companies that are trying to make the transaction easy for people to to get used to crypto if they don't have a wallet, and to get them to engage. So I'm seeing a lot of companies incorporating it into their toolkit.
Absolutely. And sorry, Peter.
No, go on. Go on, Andy. Finish the thought.
It just reminded me, Andrew, what you were just saying there. Tim from Endless announced this morning that they are introducing an NFT element to their platform. So they're going to have live streams where people are going to all be involved, and then they're going to pick out key moments from those live streams and mint those as NFTs and sell them afterwards. So it's people are finding different ways of applying. So that's the NBA model effectively. So people are looking at what other people are doing in other areas and then applying those models to different industries, if you like. But he's working on that Tezos platform because it makes it much more accessible to the average fan. Not accessible as in the hoops you have to jump through, because there are a lot, but you've got like an average cost price on the Tezos platforms of $50 to $100 rather than thousands.
So he made that announcement this morning? Tim?
He made that announcement this morning, and so there's going to be a live stream tomorrow night, and we've also started becoming public that he and I and Imogen Heap are all collaborating on an NFT drop for Imogen in the coming weeks. So that's news.
Fantastic. No, it's great to hear. Yeah, because I remember he was teasing about it. It was like, I can't tell you more. And then, he talked a little about it. So it's great to hear that he's making that happen. So fantastic. Yeah. I want to ask from the manager side here as well, or for the artist. Like Brian, I don't know if you dealing with anybody that has been playing in the NFT space. I mean, this is a topic of conversation at the university. Are people talking about this? Are the kids going crazy for it? Or any of the artists you're dealing with? And it's great to see you, man.
Yeah, good to see you too, and great to be here with you all. Actually, yes. Look, they're, as far as the students that I work with, here at the music school, they're all aware of it, and I think so. There's a lot of the same reaction that we're all having. Some people are just like, "This is ridiculous." Some people are really interested. A few of them, the lucky ones, have already invested in some Bitcoin. So, I think it's the sort of the wild, wild west of it right now. But I like what you all are saying. Like, once things start getting figured out and people are trying things, I liken it to the early days of crowdfunding. I worked for the crowdfunding platform for a long time, and in the early days, it was like, well, we're not supplying the crowd. So those artists that haven't reached that level yet, where they have a crowd that can, and fans that can actually invest in things, it was an interesting time. But eventually, we figured out how to, and they figured out in the industry how to figure out how to really help independent artists as well in that platform. And I think you're going to see that with NFTs. I am working with one, or consulting with one company now that's doing some things in the space, and they're backed by Oracle, and we are having bi-weekly calls now, so somewhat, we might as well do a clubhouse at this point. And we're talking about all these things that everyone is talking about, and ways that we can enter into the space.
Right on. I also want to shout out to Jessie, who's tuned in over at Twitch. What's up, Jessie? I think she popped in over here. She was following our live stream, and I think she popped in here for a second, so she might be back on the live stream.
I want to take a second too, and I want to say hello to Melody and to Destiny. Welcome to the stage. You've been waiting patiently. Melody, I think I dragged you up here. I'm not sure if you were busy. I hope not. But Destiny, you had your hand up. I wondered if you had something you wanted to share, maybe on this headline or one we covered earlier.
Yeah, thanks for having me up. I glad that you guys bought the perspectives of those two articles on NFTs, and I've been witnessing the craze, and I haven't looked too deeply into it, but I did feel like all of the sentiments that were expressed today in those articles, because I feel like it depends on the artist, but for indie artists, they're or I would say developing artists rather, they don't have such a what is it, like a stable fan base, right? That's going to even stream their music. So I would be very hesitant for them to even get into the NFT space. But I think for indie artists who are established, who already have budding careers, whether they were signed already or not, there's a lot of indie artists that are making great livings off of their artistry. I think it is something that they can dabble into, but it's all of these subsets of people, right? Like, who are your followers, and then who are your fans, and then who are your fans who actually spend money, and then who are your fans who spend money who are also into NFTs and cryptocurrency, right? So it's just a really small subset of people for indie and developing artists that they could really depend on to support them in this endeavor. But yeah, I didn't want to take up too much time on this because I know time is winding down, but yeah.
Thanks, Destiny.
I'd love to add to that. I totally agree with you, Destiny. For me, as an independent artist, I barely understand NFTs still, and I feel like my fan base doesn't even know what an NFT is yet. So I just feel like for indies, it's not something that I'm really focusing on, versus just kind of studying and observing and learning right now.
I think that's a great place to be in, and with all things like this, it's so uncertain. I feel like life is so uncertain right now, with the vaccines, with NFTs. I feel like we just need to take time to just research and really, see how stable this is, and how it's going to be. And then when we have, a signal to where it is stable or whatever, then we can just jump in. But I like to really just sit with things and really watch and research before getting too deep into it.
Yeah, totally. I am right on the same page as you.
And to that point, it feels like everything is changing. Everything is changing. The way we grocery shop is changing. Do you remember the days when you didn't care which way people were walking up and down the aisles? Do you remember the days when you didn't care when somebody stood really closely to you, like on public transit or in the store? Everything is changing about the way that we live daily life, from the way that we interact with each other to the ways that we run our errands. Do we really need to change our currency right now? Just globally, do we really? It's a great question.
Well, Coinbase, taking this one step further, was like Coinbase made their, they're going public. And then Coinbase, now they broke a new record. So Bitcoin broke a new record. Again, I don't know what it is right now. I think it was 65,000 as of earlier today. So it's all this alternative currencies. But going back to this article here, and they use the word bubble, and it's not necessary. I would not declare this as a bubble, and because it's something new. It's 3 years old, and a little old, 4 years old. And it became a buzz, and you have to test things out. When VR first came out, it was like, oh, what's this craze? And then it was like, it didn't really catch on. And then it was, there was technology that, people weren't ready for it. It was a price, things like that. But now VR is getting its legs. Bitcoin, I mean, how long has been cryptocurrency? It's been around for the sake of like when it had its first peak. So it was the early adopters and had that first bubble. And then, well, that not a bubble, it had like some peaks and valleys and was going up. And then it had a bubble and then it crashed. But then it's 3 years later, it's coming back. So every kind of technology that's something like this that rise and fall, you're going to see that. I mean, is it a dead cat bounce? It could be something like as simple as that, and it'll just stabilize. When we see markets be volatile, sometimes it's just a correction. I think this is really more of just a correction of the shiny new car smell and people starting to figure it out. But also is the question is going to occur in the next year or so is saying, did I invest in something? Did I spend millions of dollars on this thing that I cannot resell now? That's going to be the true test of the longevity of being able to trade these kind of NFTs. By then, we're also going to be onto new uses for it. So it's going to evolve. NFTs might be something else, and there'll be a divergent of there. So it's great to see that they have these case studies and that there is this attention because people are out using it. People are out getting accustomed to it. And the ease of, getting a MetaMask and a wallet and writing down the 12 numbers, the 12 passcodes for your password that you have to actually save somewhere and never lose it. Those are things that, take Gen Z, Gen X and above, and they're like, yeah, not so much about this, but you'd be surprised at how many of those people have been waiting for something like this. So I don't even think it is generation. It's like aligned with a particular generation. I just think it's across the board that people are interested in this, but the technologies for future for Gen Z and younger is going to be that alternative currencies, I feel.
Well, yeah, and so many of our articles that we're discussing are dealing with what currency is going to mean moving forward. I do want to throw it over to Jamie here in just a moment, but we are moving into the final moments of the Music News Power Hour. So final moments, final thoughts here shortly. But Jamie, I think I cut you off just a moment ago. Did you have something you wanted to share with us? I apologize if I did.
Jumping off of the NFT thing for a second into a more music related news, a very pragmatic group has decided to move on with their year, which means pairing Live Nation and the Cleveland Orchestra has just announced tickets go on sale May 3rd for an 11-week run of shows at Blossom, which is an outdoor shed, starting on July 4th concert weekend, which is always a huge thing in the area. This means they are moving forward with outdoor concerts, and this is a group that is very large, very pragmatic, and very much tours the world every year. So that's good. This. That's good news for it. They have not announced anything regarding what the ticket sales are going to look like as to how they're going to space out people both inside and outside, meaning seated and out on the lawn. But that should come out sometime closer to May 3rd when the tickets actually go on sale.
Jamie, you know me, I'm so excited about live music and I'm totally geeking out over this. And so I hope you're going to please come back into the Music News Power Hour room when there's an update on that, because I would love to know more information about that. A ray of hope with live shows finally coming back. I love it. Jamie, thank you so much for ending the room on that note. Now I'm doing a little you can't see, but the folks on YouTube can. So I just quickly here we have the final moments. We are actually almost into overtime, but just quickly final moments. Do we have any final thoughts on the stage? We've covered.
I'll put 3 minutes on the clock.
Okay, 3 minutes on the clock. Any final thoughts here in our final moments today?
I have a final thought on the whole NFT thing, which is I think a lot of it will be very dependent on the difficulty and or ease or cost of the uptake of it for the modern person. A la look back at beta versus VHS versus Laserdisc versus DVD, Blu-ray to streaming. There's always been an investment that you have to make before you get into it. And we saw that with beta and VHS and Laserdisc that all came out at the same time, and which one won out of that. Which one was the easiest to use, which one was the most economical, and which one gave you the most ability to use it easily. And we know how that one. Laserdisc failed. Beta got put onto the shelf, and VHS was around for decades.
Right.
And as soon as Peter, as soon as you read the NFT article, it reminded me of a Blu-ray player. I can't say why.
and on that, it's like people still didn't know how to stop the clock from flashing 12 on their VHS. All right. This is awesome. Thank you all so much. Any last final thoughts? We have 90 seconds left. Anybody else just want to shout something out there? Final thoughts.
Just want to say thanks again. I love this room. It's just so great. So thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
It's great to see you, Melody. Thanks for joining us, and thanks everybody on the stage for joining us and being part of our conversation today. Thanks so much for listening in. We are live not just on Clubhouse, but we are streaming video and audio. So thanks for listening in.
Yeah, you can see if you want to check out Eli's happy dance that she was doing before, be like, you can go check us out at Music Industry City on YouTube. Peter Schwing is the Twitch account. I actually use my personal brand account for Twitch streaming. Music Industry City on YouTube, Facebook, all that other stuff. So thanks again, everybody, and let's start rolling out the room. We do this every Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, and that's going to...
That'll take us out for today. We'll see you tomorrow, 12 to 1 Eastern, every weekday, 12 to 1 Eastern, right here at Music News Power Hour. See you then.